The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Well, across Canada, for anybody who's read the news, food banks are kind of everywhere. And everywhere across the country, they've reached record numbers that they haven't ever before. London is no different in that regard. We're up at, 10,000 individuals a month that we're trying to help just directly at the food bank. That doesn't count the other agencies that we assist as well. But across the country, this is a common story. And there's no better person to go and talk to about that than the person that's with me here today. Kirsten Beardsley is CEO of Food Banks Canada. Now, Kirsten, I think you've been with them, is it 8 years?
8 years, yeah. This in a week, actually.
In a week, and CEO for the last 5 months.
Exactly, yes.
Right? It's interesting, I think, because you've been through a bit of a, you're looking through your mandate and designing how you wanted to move into the future, and you pick these new things, and then all of a sudden, all of this stuff starts happening. So an interesting time of challenge for you. But I remember, Kristen, it was in 1987 at the very beginning, we had whatever food banks could come from across Canada to London. And we met at the University of Western Ontario, who hosted us there. And that then moved on and became part of an inaugural meeting that we had that year for establishing what was then called Canadian Association of Food Banks, now Food Banks Canada. But that's how far back it goes. And I remember back in those days, people were talking about things like sunset clauses, or food banks won't be around much for very long. Government's got to do more. And I mean, people really, I think, believed in that. And now here we are 36 years later, and we're having these kind of discussions. It's kind of tough. But in your 8 years at Food Banks Canada, which really is a membership-based organization from across the country, correct? In your 8 years of being there, what kind of changes have you seen just in that while?
I've seen a number of changes. I've seen food banks be incredibly innovative and very community oriented. I always say this from a national lens. The beauty of food banking is its diversity. Yeah. You can go. You can't. One food bank in one city is not the same as the one the next town over. It's a challenge nationally, obviously, to talk about this thing called food banking, but I've seen a lot of movement towards making sure folks who come to our services have the food that they need, whether that's more fresh food, whether that's culturally appropriate food. I've seen a lot of movement towards meeting communities where they are, and providing a dignified service and continuing those conversations with the communities we serve. And then, obviously the last 2.5 some odd years with the pandemic, I saw that innovation grow exponentially. I don't think people understand. I don't think anyone in this country outside of food banking understands how much food bankers provided during the pandemic, and the spirit of just, okay, what are we meeting today? We'll change, we'll adapt, we'll make it work so that people have the food they need. So that's one of the things I want people to understand about food banking, is that it's very community driven and very innovative. And the people driving food banking across the country are really have just this magical spirit of community service.
Yeah, we've really felt that in London. It's been a time of real renaissance for us, for instance, since the pandemic's happened. I know that's happened elsewhere. But I think people need to know that Food Banks Canada isn't this kind of group where we get together and just share information, see how we're doing, right? I think a big part of our success as a London food bank has been the intervention from Food Banks Canada at so many different levels, whether it's policy, whether it's research, but above all, like the sharing of food or funds. Because you folks have really worked really well with food companies and with the corporate sector about fundraising and stuff. Can you go over that with us a bit? Because we have benefited from that, and it'd be helpful to hear it directly from you, how that works.
Yeah, of course. So we have this 2-part mission at Food Banks Canada. So it's relieving hunger today and preventing hunger tomorrow. And I know a lot of food banks have a similar mission. And so The Relieving Hunger Today part is where we source food and funds to support food banking across the country. And then the Preventing Hunger Tomorrow is the longer term solutions. And we tie those two together with research. In terms of sourcing funds and food, a lot of that is, we've got this national perspective. We've got, we work with corporations that want to support food banks, support relieving food insecurity, and yet probably don't want to have, 750 individual relationships across the country. They want one point of contact. Yeah. So one of the things that I think is a bit of a secret that people don't know about is we have at Food Banks Canada a logistics team. So we have a group of folks we call them the food team. They source food, they work with national organizations to find opportunities. And then we've got people who are making connections, whether that's we move food by rail, by plane, by truck, to every corner of the country to make sure that there's an equitable distribution. So if you're in Newfoundland or if you're in BC, and even we've expanded into the far north, you're getting access to some of that food that tends to exist in Ontario, in southwestern Ontario, where we have most of the food manufacturing. So that's one of our key roles is making sure there's this equitable distribution.
Yeah, and I think for instance, going through the pandemic suddenly meant that the challenges before us were immense. All food banks are doing that, but groups like the federal government, for instance, would look at that and say, how can we help people with food insecurity problems during the pandemic when they're afraid to go to grocery stores or there's shortage of supply lines or whatever it is. And they chose to work through Food Banks Canada to distribute the funds that were so necessary to help keep people. And do you know how that came about? Like, did you sit down and have meetings with them, or did they just trust Food Banks Canada that way? Because you've been around a long time and just approached you and just decided to steer it through that way. How did that come about?
It came about, we have longstanding relationships with the federal government, as you said. That's a key part of our mandate. So we have relationships with the key ministries that deal with issues around poverty and housing and disability, as well as the food insecurity file, which lives with Agriculture Canada, our AAFC. And so it came about because they knew they had to respond. We drafted a letter to government with some of our partners in the food insecurity space early in the pandemic saying, you really need to take this issue seriously. And I'm thrilled that they did. And yes, we met very regularly. I would say in those early days when food banks were scrambling, we were meeting with government probably 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week sometimes to just talk about how we deliver this. And we've worked in partnership, as I said, Breakfast Club of Canada, community food centers, Salvation Army, other folks that do this kind of work. We all came together and we each designed a way of getting the funds as far reaching as they could into communities. And I'm so proud of the way food banks responded. And, I know the funds were so necessary and needed. And the food, even the government brokered some food relationships for industries that were hurt by the shutdown of the hospitality industry. So it was both we were there, we were doing the work, we're trusted in our communities. MPs across the country know their local food banks. So we were already trusted, and then we worked to build the relationship. So when we were called on to deliver the funds, we were there.
So from our standpoint, from the receiving end, Food Banks Canada, and also like London Food Bank and all of the others, it's a wonderful thing. But from the federal government level and from the ministries level, the ability, I think, to have Food Banks Canada, consider what it would have been like if it didn't exist. They would have to either work with, provincial associations or with individual food banks. It would have taken a long time to roll that out, right? But what they chose to do was to work through Food Banks Canada, who already has those relationships with food banks. So it wasn't just a clearinghouse, so to speak, where the funds could be given. You could distribute it. You could distribute it in a way that reflected the regions in which those people were in. I think that must have been a great benefit to the federal government to be able to have that as an outlet.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's the value of having an organization. And we worked very closely with the provincial organizations and made sure those funds made them out quickly. Sometimes when I go back and I'm looking for, reports and emails from those early days, I can't believe actually how quickly it all moved. I mean, some of those funds made their way across the country before the end of March 2020. And then we've been recipients of other waves of funding. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it was a benefit that we had this system in place, that we knew how to work together, that we have grants that we already run. So we just ran, we know how to do a granting program because we often invest in food banks. And then the food banks themselves are very accountable for those funds. So very aware of the need to report back. Which I don't think is the case always with organizations that were maybe newer on the ground. And so I think we responded. We solved a problem and met a community need that definitely the government appreciates. And also, we help them to be accountable for those funds.
And we can't forget that during that time, a lot of corporations showed up, like they definitely did at London. I mean, within the first month after the pandemic started, we were meeting with businesses who were saying, how can we help? There was kind of an empathy there was an outpouring at the beginning of it towards the homeless, towards people with food insecurity. And, when corporations came forward, they were doing the same thing. They were trying to find a channel through which they could donate. Now, I know that Food Banks Canada has relationships with groups like Walmart and others, but can you go over that just with us a bit, how you work with the corporate sector or the business sector across the country and how you facilitate that?
Yeah, of course. So one of the roles, again, of Food Banks Canada is to work with national companies that want to invest in food banking, and we try to make it easy for them to invest. One point of contact. They often have one national team working on their corporate social responsibility file. And so we help them with that. So we have a whole corporate fundraising team that works with these companies. And again, we've seen, as you said, during the pandemic, food insecurity certainly became a high priority for a number of companies. And yet they're not necessarily experts on how to take that energy or that guidance or that will from their employees and their leadership and turn it into action. And that's where the Food Banks Canada team can help out. So we work with those teams. We help design whatever program works for them, and then we get those funds out across the country so they have an impact on the ground. So that's one of the roles that we play. And then the relationships with some of the grocery retailers like Walmart are unique because it's not just that they fund us, give us funds, but there's a food relationship as well. So the grocery stores, anything that's going to be close to code or is not fit for sale, but is still healthy for human consumption, we've matched them with food banks across the country, and it goes into the food bank. So it's a bit of a deeper relationship on that side with Loblaw and Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. I mean, the national corporations and stuff would really kind of do need a national group to work through. I think that's really true. We were incorporated in 1986 as a food bank, but back then when we first met with other food banks, there weren't many. They were beginning to really take off, but there weren't that many. And we would meet in London or we would meet in Kingston or Toronto, and there would be Kingston, ourselves, Kitchener, Chatham, Toronto, and Montreal, right? Like Montreal came up and they would come in and have these meetings with them. We met every 3 months. And, we were like people who suddenly were put in charge of a ship with no maps or anything else. We were just trying to figure out how we were going to get through this. But Montreal's way of looking at it was totally different than ours. And it was so fascinating. They were awesome. They came and they worked with us, and it was great. But soon enough, they wanted to hive off and start their own provincial organization that represented their sensitivities and other things. And we wish them Godspeed as they went, and they've been awesome. But you, as a food bank, Food Banks Canada, you have to deal with, is it 10 provincial associations, right? Do you find that they're all really pretty different, or do you find that they're largely the same?
No, they're pretty different, I would say. Different perspectives, different approaches, and different models. So we've the two models of provincial association There's one that's more of an association like Ontario, where all the food banks in the province are members, and it's a similar mandate to Food Banks Canada, but at a provincial level. So supporting the food banks within the province, but also advocating provincially. And then we've got a hub model. So in half of the country, the largest food bank, or half of the provinces, the largest food bank is also the provincial organization. So they play this, this advocacy role, they play the member service role, but they also do a significant amount of food acquisition and distribution across the province. So that's one way they're different. As you said, there's different approaches. So in some regions, I would say we tend more towards a social service organization. We are about making sure there's the right food to the right people at the right time. And in other places, it's an environmental response. Not that they aren't, we aren't doing both all the time, but for some, it's about removing food waste. Any sort of food waste that's healthy and safe and consumable, removing that from getting to landfill and making sure that gets to folks. Yeah. So that's one approach that's a bit different. And just, we meet with the provincial associations regularly, and we're getting into different membership models, different fee structures. So it's very different. And again, it's the beauty of it and some of the challenge of it as well, is that it's very diverse across the country.
And what about Indigenous communities? What kind of access do you have there that you bring? Because I know that that's important to you.
Yes, so we're building relationships. So every provincial association has this as a priority. I don't think anyone doesn't see this as a significant priority, but again, very different relationships and projects across the country. We have built especially over the pandemic, prior to, but now really through the pandemic and the reach of some of our funding, really built some relationships in the far north that we didn't have before. Yeah. So just for context, food insecurity rates in Nunavut are 4 times what they are in Ontario, for example. It's at a crisis level. It was before the pandemic. It will likely get worse. And there are these community leaders across Nunavut who we've been able to reach and figure out how to support. I think with Indigenous communities, it's making sure that we're in the right role, which is a supportive role, making sure that what we're doing is providing, whether that's financial or knowledge sharing support, whatever it is but the community itself is in the driver's seat of whatever change they're bringing. And it's requiring us to think a little bit differently about the support. One of the grants that we gave out during the pandemic, which wasn't even, we got many millions of dollars to support, which was needed. And this was I think a $10,000, maybe $12,000 grant. So not a big grant in the context. And it was for Northern First Nation in Alberta. And they had the lake that the First Nation used for fishing, or one of the lakes on the First Nation, was, overfished, and there wasn't a good source of fish anymore. But the road to the other lake had been grown over. And so the funding went to hire 2 people to clear the road. And then elders came and taught the community traditional ways of fishing and preparing food. And that created a sustainable source of fish. Wow. And that's not food banking, or that's not what we think of food banking, but we were able to support a community with a food security initiative. So it's things like that I think are going to push us to think differently about how we support Indigenous communities. Yeah. But I'm excited. I'm really excited that this is where we go next as a system.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you more about that at some point, because I think we work with a group called Sandy Lake, which is up in northern Ontario. Highest rate of type 2 diabetes in the world is there. But we've been trying to help them to get back to traditional harvesting, what they've been doing. But just how you go about that, it's a whole different matter, and it's good for us to learn to be sensitive in those areas. So I want to talk to you about that at some point. But I did want to talk about, it's interesting that you came in as the CEO 5 months ago, but you folks had just been through a process of prioritizing where you were now going to go as a national organization. Now, I know that you and I were part of a conference, a Zoom conference together about a month ago, and you brought up that advocacy was actually one thing that you you were very, very passionate about. What does that look like from a Food Banks Canada point of view? When you talk about advocacy, what do you mean?
When I talk about advocacy, I mean a couple of things. One is traditional lobbying of government for social change. We know that while the work that food banks do is critical, and as you said, I love hearing about the history of food banking. Some food bankers thought this model would have a sunset and be gone, and here we are providing essential services across this country. We need to also advocate so that we don't normalize some of the things like homelessness, like extreme poverty, like exclusions of people with disabilities from being able to afford the necessities of life. So it's important that we advocate at all levels of government for the social policies that we need. And we've done that. That's been part of Food Banks Canada's mandate for a long time. We've got team members in Ottawa who build those relationships with folks on Parliament Hill. And I think where I want to take our advocacy is building a sense of a movement for social change. Food banks, I can't tell you, I've mentioned it already, but food banks are so well respected in their communities and have relationships, as you know, with all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal. And if we can sort of figure out how to come together, whether that's around certain issues or at certain times, to create this change, I really think we have an opportunity and an obligation to those we serve to make some real changes. And the times are tough, as you said. The food bank use is at its highest level from coast to coast to coast right now. And we need smart, creative solutions that bring that number of people who need us down.
Yeah, it really is my sense that part of the reasons why food banks are so highly trusted is because the shareholders are the citizens themselves primarily, but also associations and businesses. So it's a reflection of the community itself. That's part of the reason why it's trusted, because people look at food banks and see themselves in the mirror. And I think that's a really important piece. It doesn't seem to be detached or whatever it is. It's sensitive to where people are at. And I think the other thing, Kirsten, that I've discovered from talking with other food banks as well, I think the pandemic actually changed the way that food banks are perceived a bit. I think we've gone from being this, traditional, kind of homogeneous group with all of these different sectors of community and helping to kind of a stateswoman role, if that's the right word, where all of a sudden now, I think is coming through the pandemic, food banks did such, I think, a significant and principled job of directing all of these resources and the government largesse and others, corporate, as you talked about, that I think we are now at a place where we can actually, this is the wrong way of putting it, but broker certain things. To some degree, our influence is more important than our food resources. We have gotten to this point where we have, I think, across the country, proved adept at bringing different groups together to look at a problem and try to manage it. Has that been your sense? Because it's definitely been mine for here in London, but also just from other food banks that I've talked to. And if true, then it puts food banks in a role which can facilitate the very thing you're talking about. Is that what you're sensing?
Yes, absolutely. I'm the same as you. I think that we, and from the steps removed that I am from the front lines that you all were at, I was so proud to be even a small part of this work during the pandemic, because I think what happened, leaders lead, and we led during the pandemic. We didn't shy away from the need. Everyone just went all in to say, we are going to be here for our communities. And that trust, everyone witnessed it. We didn't shut doors. We didn't, we made our operations as safe as possible. We got food on the shelves when even people going to the grocery store were having trouble getting food on their shelves. We stepped into that leadership role. And I do think that's what's going to carry us through to have these important conversations with government. I mean, it matters to be able to talk to any level of government that you've got people on the ground who say, yeah, this is a trusted organization. I work with them, people I know volunteer with them. My kids go, they come to my kids' school and talk about food insecurity. It matters, those community connections. And that absolutely happened, in all across the country. And so we are in a very solid position. I agree with you. I think we changed from being a bit old-fashioned, or the perception of us as being old-fashioned, to modern, innovative, forward-thinking, community-driven organizations, which we are. And I think now we have to take that forward, because the times aren't easier for food banks, unfortunately, right now. Maybe a little less chaotic, but certainly tough.
Yeah. Kirsten, it's very interesting that you and I have never met, other than on that Zoom panel call from a month ago. But I was telling my wife Jane this morning that I don't know where we would be as a food bank without Food Banks Canada. Now, we're charter members of Food Banks Canada. We were there at the beginning. But when if I had a way, and there is, I just haven't had the time for it, but if I had a way to count all the different ways in which this corporate sector, in the government sector, and other policy, research, all of those kind of things, how we had benefited from Food Banks Canada, we wouldn't be nearly where we were at. And I think what's been helpful for us hasn't been just the resources, it's been the research or the on-the-spot news that's coming out, like you folks post every week about this stuff. But we suddenly realize we're not alone in this universe. Food Bank in New Brunswick is going through the same thing as we are, or Indigenous community in Northern Manitoba is going through some real troubles. I think food banks are who they are in large part because of who they are collectively. But we don't know that very much. We don't know what the others are doing. It's really you folks that have made that work. So I just do want to say, as a London food bank, and I love this job, I've been at it 36 years, I just love it. But we wouldn't be nearly as far if it wasn't for Food Banks Canada. And I really appreciate all that you've done for us. And I told you at the beginning of this, you have two standing invitations. One is we want to see you in London, because this is a wonderful community and I want to show you what it's done. But the other is I'd like to talk to you again in 2 or 3 weeks if we can, Kristen. Let's dig down a little bit deeper into this food security thing and more what needs to be done. Are you up for that? Because that would be great for us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, anytime. And I absolutely want to get to London and see the food bank and the community. So
I know that would be really
good. And thank you for your kind words about Food Banks Canada. I think,
it's true.
So we're that step removed. And so sometimes you hope the work that you're doing is having an impact. So it's nice to hear that it does.
I have to say, though, in that initial founding meeting back at University of Western Ontario, I don't think we knew just how effective Food Banks Canada could become. We talked about the need for a national presence because this was happening in every province. But I don't think I ever saw just how effective it would become. And the fact that we are more effective than we thought we would be is in large part due to Food Banks Canada. So it's benefited you that you've got an empowered membership, and it's definitely benefited us that we've got this, empowered collective way, headquarters way of helping us and getting us the resources we need to get by. It's really a great partnership all the way across the board and across each province. So it's awesome. I'll be in touch, Kristen, and we'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Looking for the best way to get the Major League Baseball games you want to watch? Rogers Super Sports Pack has you covered. With MLB Extra Innings, you'll have a premium ticket to out-of-market regular season games with all games available in HD. Don't miss the action from the games you want from both the American and National Leagues. MLB Extra Innings, part of the Super Sports Pack. For only $35.95 a month, Rogers customers get all this for one all-inclusive price. Order using your remote starting on channel 431 or visit Rogers.com today.
You're watching Rogers TV, London.
La 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 la! It's the Rtv Quiz Show! Yes, folks, you know what time it is. It's time for the Rtv Quiz Show. I'm Giovanni Petit, and you are probably tired of living through historical events, huh? That's why we do this, folks. To take your mind off all the craziness that's going around out there and put it on all the craziness that's going on in here. Now you sit back, relax. Remember, you're going to need a pen, a paper, a beverage of your choice, and don't forget to bring your sense of humor. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to believe, but we are on episode number 91. And you know what that means? It means it's the all entertainment edition of the Rtv Quiz Show, all right? It's going to be, this is good. Yeah, some easy, some hard, some funny, some not. You're going to go through a spectrum of emotion. You're going to need medication when this show's over, all right? I got, call me, email me, follow me on Twitter, and I'll hook you up with some meds, all right? Here we go. Round one is called Film Debut. Film debut, all right. Whose feature film debut was as Hans Gruber in Die Hard? Who was that? Huh? Question number two, which actress made her film debut starring opposite Jim Carrey in 1994's The Mask? Jim Carrey, you know, I'm a big fan of his. He's a big fan of mine. We got a lot in common. We're both Canadian, both comics, both. Well, his career took a different projection. Question number three, Kevin Bacon's film debut was as Chip Diller in what 1978 comedy? Oh, speaking of Kevin Bacon debuts here, he's just announced that Kevin Bacon will be performing at Denny's restaurants all across America. He will be doing male exotic dancing. Apparently, just look for the signs that says Bacon Strips. Question number four, who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in her feature film debut? It was in a 2013 Steve McQueen film that also won Best Picture. I don't know. Question number five. In what 1984 movie did Johnny Depp make his film debut? Johnny Depp. It's the guy, I think he's the guy with the... He got weirder. That guy. Right, folks, it's time for round two. These are TV anagrams. So the viewers have to unscramble the letters of the clues that are in quotation marks. So you unscramble them to something that makes sense, like the name of a TV show. Okay, question number six. You're going to get it. You're going to understand. Here we go. Dog Rebirth is an anagram of a title of what 24-hour surveillance reality show? Okay, so you rearrange those letters. The name of a real TV show, 24-hour surveillance reality show. Question number seven. The title of what hit comedy is revealed if you unscramble the letters in Street Chicks? Now, folks, this is a little hard, so I'm going to give you some time. I'm just going to write in my journal to give you some time here. Dear Journal, if a medium can talk to the dead, imagine what a large can do. Question number 8. Rune Howell Toffee would be an exceptionally difficult puzzle on what long-running TV game show? I'll give you time. Dear Journal, Whoever came up with the word dentures really missed the opportunity to call them substitutes. Question number 9. Freemason Goth was not the name of a character on what popular HBO series? What was the name of that HBO series? I'll give you time. I missed one in my journal. Don't worry about it. Dear Journal, why is it that the main reason I show my driver's license is to buy things that impair my ability to drive? Question number 10. What Apple TV Plus series could fittingly be called Sod Tales based on its setting? Dear Journal, why doesn't Google make a dating app that matches people based on their internet search history? Save a lot of time. You know what I mean? You could save a lot of time. All right, time for round one. Round one answers. All right, the category was film debuts. Question number 1 was, whose feature film debut was as Hans Gruber in Die Hard? The answer to that is Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman. Question number 2, what actress made her film debut starring opposite Jim Carrey in 1994's The Mask? That was Carmen Diaz. Question number 3, Kevin Bacon's film debut as Chip Diller in what 1978 comedy? That was National Lampoon's Animal House. Question number 4, who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in her feature film debut? It was a 2013 Steve McQueen film that won Best Picture, huh? That was Lupita Nyong'o. Why do you keep writing questions nobody knows? This is not Jeopardy, huh? Question number 5, in what 1984 movie did Johnny Depp make his film debut? That was A Nightmare on Elm Street. And remember when you were a kid? That was a pretty scary nightmare on Elm Street. Now that I'm a grown up, my Nightmare on Elm Street is when the property tax bill comes. You open it up. Question number 6, Bog Rebirth is an anagram of the title of what 24-hour surveillance reality TV show? Anybody know what that is? That's Big Brother. Big Brother. All right, okay. Question number 7. The title of what hit Canadian comedy is revealed if you unscramble the letters in Street Chicks? The answer is Schitt's Creek. Can't do nothing. It's the answer. What do you mean that's juvenile? Question number 8. Rune Howell Toffee would be an exceptionally difficult puzzle on what long-running TV game show? That's Wheel of Fortune. Folks, I can't begin to tell you how much I hate this show, okay? And it's not just because Vanna White is fading. You know what I mean? Fading fast. It's not that. It's because this is my parents' favorite TV show. 7 o'clock. Every night they're watching Wheel of Fortune for the last 30 years. You have yet to solve a puzzle. Not one puzzle. All they do is stare at the screen and scream, buy a vowel. Buy a vowel. I go, Dad, it's English. Not every word has got 17 vowels. Question number 9. Freemason Goth is not the name of a character in what popular HBO series? It's Game of Thrones. If you got that, good for you. Question number 10. What Apple TV series could fittingly be called Sod Tales based on its setting? That's Ted Lasso. It's a show about a soccer coach. Folks, don't you worry. We got more Rtv Quiz Show coming up right after this.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Jeff from Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff. We're back for season 3. We've had the opportunity to see some great backyards and have some great barbecue. Join us, Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff.
Okay, so we're here at the rep room looking at more fun ways to work out with your kids and introduce them to exercise. Today we're going to look at an exercise called the farmer's carry. Farmer's carry is carrying weight over distance. Super important because it teaches us how to integrate the use of our legs and move while providing a lot of core stability. And the heavier you get, the more of a metabolic demand this becomes. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bend over and pick up the weights. We're going to get our butts down. We're going to stand up nice and tall. Good. And once we get that locked out position, we're going to start to move. And you can see with this weight resistance, we're building our core strength, we're building shoulder stability, and we're learning how to integrate movement with all of this. Super important for everyday functional life.
Blood in the urine is the most common symptom of bladder cancer. Don't ignore this warning sign, not even once.
Hey, welcome back to round 3 of the Rtv Quiz Show, the hottest show on television. Thanks to you guys and all your support. Don't forget to follow me on the fake book, on the Insta scam, on the Twitter face, on all this thing that I might, and soon to be launching soon, my OnlyFans page. Folks, you don't want to miss that. All right, here we go. Question 11. I'm just joking. Of course, I don't have an OnlyFans page. I have a fans only page, which means things are in reverse. So if you don't send me money, then I'm going to send you nudes. So it's up to you. Some things you can't unsee, folks. All right, folks, round 3, the category is party music, huh? Everybody loves a good party. Let's see what we got here. Question 11. What was the lead single from the LMFAO album, Sorry for Party Rockin'? How many times I tell you, don't write questions that make me feel old. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know. Question number 12. Whose 1986 single said, "You gotta fight for your right to party"? Now, that's more like it. Who sang that? If you don't know that, then you're really old or really young or dead. Question 13. What song features the lyrics, "Too much pressure and I am nervous"? I think that was my wedding song. That was no. That's when the taxi man turned on the radio and a Jay-Z song was on, and a Jay-Z song was on. Question 14. What Euro dance group released the song "We Like to Party" in 1998? Was it A, Eiffel 65, B, Snap, C, Vega Boys, or D, Love Incorporated? If you're having difficulty with this category, you have to remember that in Europe, they have different words for different things because they speak different languages, but like they have different expressions. Like we call annoying, entitled women Karens, and in Europe, they call them Americans. Question 15, who sang the song, It's My Party? It was the hit single from the 1963 album, I'll Cry If I Want to. That's one for the old guys. One for the old guys. Now the young guys feel stupid. All right, time for round four. Round four, the category is adaptations. All right, okay, so like apparently like a movie that's based on a book or a musical that's based off of a song, or, you know, it's things that are more like flexible, like more flexible than my mortgage payments in yoga pants. Like flexibility is the key to these answers. All right, here we go. Question 16, what 2004 punk rock album became a Broadway musical in 2010? Question 17. What 2019 movie adaptation of a literary classic starred Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and Saoirse Ronan? Question 18. In the TV adaptation of MASH, Alan Alda played Hawkeye Pierce. Who played Hawkeye in the movie? Was it A, Robert Duvall, B, Peter Fonda, C, Elliot Gould, or D, Donald Sutherland? Folks, I must say it's quite the array of A-list actors, full of integrity and professionalism, which I have to tell you, folks, I'm pretty proud of myself, of my professional ethics here. I was approached by a major manufacturer of cleaning supplies to endorse their product on this show. It was a large sum of money. I don't mind you telling you that. And I said, no, I would not sell myself out, that my reputation is important to me. It's stellar and it's clean. Much like my bathroom sink, when I use Ajax, it's hard on stains, yet soft on all bathroom surfaces. So, sometimes you got to do the right thing. Question 19. The movie Apocalypse Now is loosely based on what Joseph Conrad novella? Novella, of course, is a small novel with lots of pictures. Also known as a comic book. No? Johnny, what are you doing upstairs in your room? I'm busy. I'm reading a novella, Mom. As long as you're not reading those stupid comic books. Question 20. What literary character has been portrayed by Alex Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, and John Krasinski in film and television adaptations? What's the name of that character? These questions are tough, buddy. There's people who watch this show. This is the only show they watch. You understand? They're Right, time for the answers. Round 3. The category was party music. Here are the answers. Question 11 was, what was the lead single from the LMFAO album, Sorry for Party Rocking? That was Party Rock Anthem. Folks, I have to tell you, the last party I rocked was a gender reveal party. Totally misunderstood the purpose of that and showed up naked. Question number 12, whose 1986 single said, "You gotta fight for your right to party"? The answer is The Beastie Boys. Remember that? You gotta fight for your right to party. Huh? I miss my younger days. I know I'm getting older, folks, because when I was young, I used to sneak out of my house to go to a party. Now that I'm old, I sneak out of a party to go to my house. Question 13. What song features the lyrics, "Too much pressure and I'm nervous"? That's when the taxi man turned on the radio and a Jay-Z song was on, That was Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus. We'll also accept the name she goes by when she's in Canada, which is Kilometer Silas. Question 14. What Eurodance group released the song "We Like to Party" in 1998? That was obviously the Vega Boys. The Venga Boys. Question 15. Who sang the song "It's My Party"? It was a hit single on the 1963 album "I'll Cry If I Want To." That was Leslie Gore. It's my party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry. You would cry too if it happened to you. Question 16. What 2004 punk rock album became a Broadway musical in 2010? That was American Idiot. We'll also accept Donald Trump. Question 17. What 2019 movie adaptation of a literary classic starred Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and Saoirse Ronan? I don't know, man. The answer is Little Women. Little Women. Question 19. The movie Apocalypse Now is loosely based on what John Conrad novella? Heart of Darkness. Question 20. What literary character has been portrayed by Alex Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, and John Krasinski in film and TV adaptations? That was Jack Ryan. We'll be back right after this with more RTV Quiz Show.
It's about sharing and caring. It's about doing and belonging. It's about living life to its fullest. And it's about laughing out loud. We are L'Arche Canada, and we're about witnessing and sharing the gifts of all people. Learn more about us today.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Mario Elia, and I'm the host of a new show here on Rogers TV that we're calling Keeping London Healthy with Dr. Mario. I'm a local family physician here in London, and I'm very excited to be working with Rogers TV on this new format, which will give us an opportunity to explore all sorts of topics related to medicine and health. So tune in Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. We'll see you then.
In the family with addiction, the person with the addiction becomes front, center all the time.
Addiction and substance use affects all the layers of our society.
Everything was about trying to out him and fix him, and I was just done.
I always felt kind of different. I never felt the same as other people.
Join addictions counselor Dean Anderson for Invisible, Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction, on Rogers TV.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. And I'm Allison. Coming up on the next parenting show, we're talking about chore wars. If you don't have kids that are helping out, we're going to show you how to make them accountable and enjoy it too. That's only on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to the freshly medicated Rtv Quiz Show. Round 5 coming up. Double point answers. The category is Entertainment Weekly. Entertainment Weekly. So the answers to all these questions contain the days of the week in them. The days of the week. Here we go. Question 21. What 2003 movie saw Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan swap bodies? What movie was that? Folks, yes, folks. Question 22. What was the name of the daughter in the Addams family? Remember that? Question 23. What words are missing in this Rolling Stones lyric? Goodbye blank. Who could hang a name on you? Oh, fun fact here. It says that Mick Jagger became a father for the 8th time at the age of 73. Huh? Looks like those Stones just keep on rolling. Hey, Mick? Hey, Mick? Where are you gonna go? Question 24. In what movie does Al Pacino play a football coach named Tony D'Amato? Al Pacino. I always feel bad for Al Pacino's younger brother, who never made it big in the industry, his younger brother Cap. But I hear he's going to star in a whole bunch of Tim Hortons commercials next fall. So, question 25. Which of the following was a Boomtown Rats song? Was it A, I Don't Like Mondays, B, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, C, Friday I'm in Love, or D, Wednesday Morning 3 a.m.? Which one was a Boomtown's Rats song? Right, time for round 5. The answers, here we go. Question 21. What 2003 movie saw Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan swap bodies? That was Freaky Friday. Question 22. What was the name of the daughter in the Addams family? Her name was Wednesday. Wednesday. It's cruel to call your kid something like that. Everybody hates Wednesday. The best way to ruin a Wednesday is when you realize it's just Tuesday. That's the worst. That's the worst. Question 23. What word is missing from this Rolling Stone lyric? Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday. Ruby Tuesday. Who could hang a name on you? Question 24. In what movie does Al Pacino play a football coach named Tony D'Amato? That's Any Given Sunday. Now that Al Pacino is married and a little bit older, they're going to remake that movie where he's just him going to IKEA over and over and over again. Sad. Question number 25. Which of the following was a Boomtown Rats song? That was I Don't Like Mondays. Tell me why. I don't like Mondays, but I love you and nobody else. Till next time, stay calm, stay safe, and stay nice.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
I'm Shannon Woolley, host of Batter Up Beachville on Rogers TV. Join myself and Doug Harris as we learn more about the first recorded baseball game in Beachville.
Hi, I'm Dan Mailer. I'm the host of London Lights, the show where we talk about notable Londoners who have made a big mark, big impact on the world of music, entertainment, sports, politics.
Looking for the best way to get the Major League Baseball games you want to watch? Rogers Super Sports Pack has you covered. With MLB Extra Innings,